Hello, my name is Nigel Griffiths. I work in the ATS for Power Systems IBM Europe. In this movie we're going to look at Workload Partition Manager 2.1. It's quite a departure from the previous releases, so we'll have a look at the differences and then go and have a look at using it. Previous versions of WPAR Manager were a standalone tool, but now 2.1 is a plug-in into Director. So you'll have to download from the IBM website a copy of IBM Systems Director, and be warned that it's about 1.6 gigabytes in size. Then you'll install that. Now fortunately with the current release, 6.1.2, the install and update to the latest release is a lot simpler, so that will take you about an hour and a half to do the install. Once you've got it up and running and you've experimented a little bit with Director, so you've got the hang of how to drive the user interface, then I suggest you install the Workload Manager plugin. You get that from the same download site for the Director. You get the file onto the Director server machine, you unzip it, untar it, and bizarrely you end up with a single file with a .bin at the end. Smells a bit like Windows to me, but it turns out to be a shell script, so you can just execute the file and it will ask you a few questions and install itself. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Then you go to the Director graphical user interface. If you go to Welcome and the Manage tab, then you'll find the Workload Manager details, as we can see here. If we click on that entry, then we get to the Workload Manager screen, and this looks quite familiar if you've used the Workload Manager before. Slightly different, but it's got the same sort of concepts of the global AIX systems that are running the workload partitions and the workload partitions themselves. I like to see this represented in more of a diagram. So on your desk you have a browser of some sort. I use Firefox. Chrome seems to work okay. You can even use Internet Explorer. That actually is connecting to the website that is being run by the Director server, again 6.1.2, and above that then on top of that we have a plugin which is the Workload Manager 2.1. Now that is talking to global copies of AIX. Now they're still running boss.wpar as part of the AIX operating system. That gives you the basic commands so you can operate WPARs on the global copy of AIX itself directly. We then have the MCR package which handles the relocation for us, much as before. We have a Workload Partition Agent 2.1. This does a similar function to the previous versions. Of course now this cooperates with Director, and we have the Director agent for 6.1.2 on the global copy of AIX. Here we are on my AIX 6.1 technology level 4 machine. We can see that here, the OS command. I've downloaded the file, it's here. It was a GNU zip file. I've unzipped it and untarred it. It's created a directory here called AIX. In here we have one file, and it's a shell script, so we can just run that. Let's just check it's got execute privileges. It has, so I can just run it. Selection of languages. English is good for me. Okay, we've got a 60-day license and enter to continue. That's one to accept. Do I want it to be restarted? The Director 6 server? Yes, I do. I've got plenty of disk space, so we'll continue. Okay, so it says it's completed. It's restarting the Director server. We know the Director server completes some of the installation as it restarts, so we'll wait for that to settle down. We can see a big Java process running. Once that's finished, then we'll start the graphical user interface. Well, that's the server side done. Now we need to do something to each of the global copies of AIX. First of all, they need to become a Director endpoint, so Director understands them. That means the common agent needs to be installed. And then we need the workload partition agent, just as we did before, to control the WPARs. Now, how do you install that? Well, I've got a number of global copies of AIX running the older agent, and I've tried various things, but I think the simplest way to actually move over to the new director way of doing things is to just remove the WPAR agent on your global copies of AIX and that MCR package too. Then you have to reboot because you need to remove that kernel extension, the MCR. Now we have a clean system, or we have perhaps a brand new global copy of AIX. First of all, you have to connect this copy of AIX6 to Director, so you have to install the common agent to do that. Little hand sign up here saying that I recommend you do that by hand. You can download a package for installing using install P to install the common agent. Once you've done that, then you can go to Director and run Discover. You want to find the operating system object. Then you give yourself access to the operating system, so you log in effectively and exchange keys, and then you do an inventory so that Director now understands what's running inside this global copy of AIX. Next you have to install the WPAR agent, and I think you can do this from Director. I prefer to do this by hand because if things go wrong or something happens, then you can actually see directly. Again, you can download a package to do this from the Director website. I found that one of them kept on failing when I was trying to do it with Director, and it turned out to be a file system was full, so I can correct that directly myself. We're not going to have too many global copies of AIX running WPARs. I found then I had to go to Director and to install something called the WPAR Agent Installer feature. Not really sure what this does, but we're using the Director again. We can select all the agents and updates that it can find in the Update Manager. We can find the WPAR Agent Installer feature and push that onto our new global copy of AIX that's under control via the common agent. Again, then we have to do an inventory. That should pick up the workload partitions that are running inside our global copy of AIX. And again, I recommend with Update Manager, go check in again to see if there are any updates missing. There may be a new update for the common agent or for the WPAR component. Now I am a bit worried that if you haven't got Director 6 experience, that previous chart will be a bit of a mystery to you. I do recommend before you start using the Workload Partition Manager that you get some Director 6 experience, basically how it operates and how it does things and how to find out what happened. And particularly the Update Manager. This is the feature that allows you to update endpoints, in our case a global copy of AIX. The Update Manager can interrogate the internet to find out what new packages are available, like technology levels or service packs, and will automatically install these for you. Now, so you need some experience with that, and I recommend you go and have a look at some of the other movies on Director 6. Now, before we go and have a look at it, so to do some hands-on look around the system and compare that with the older version, I do want to highlight one of the other big features that comes in with Workload Manager 2.1. In the early release in May 2009, we had the Fibre Channel LUNs could be attached. This is the global copy of AIX would have a LUN online, and it can be handed to a workload partition. And in the workload partition, then we could create a volume group, a logical volumes and file systems, and do whatever we wanted, as you can with a global copy of AIX. There was a restriction there, though, that if you had a LUN online like this, you couldn't do relocation. And only particular LUN devices were available. You can use this lsdev command to check if your particular SAN subsystem is supported. Now with 2.1 we can have the Fibre Channel LUNs online again in our WPARs, and we can do relocation. And we also have a new feature where the Fibre Channel LUN device can be handed to the WPAR before it starts up, and in that we can then use that as a root volume group. So all our AIX file systems can be put into that volume group, and this completely then removes our dependency on good old NFS. I mean, I liked NFS, but some people want to avoid a network file system. They prefer LUNs because we've been using those for a long time, particularly for workloads like databases that just want to talk to a real disk. We'll save this advanced feature of Fibre Channel LUN support for a different movie. We'll now have a look around the basics for Director 6 and Workload Partition Manager 2.1. Okay, then let's start from the top and we'll log in. We'll go to the Manage tab. We can see here we have Director 612. That's a good way of confirming that. We can see all the other components are 612 as well. If we scroll to the bottom here, we have a new entry here for Workload Manager 2.1, as we'd expect. We can click on these to go direct to particular panels, but if we click on the title itself, you get another familiar panel. This looks a bit like the older version. So at the top here we have the WPAR capable systems. They're all looking okay at the moment. Below here we can view the workload partitions, and underneath here we have a reminder that we've only got 59 days left of our trial license. Let's go and have a look at the capable systems. So these are the machines running the workload partition manager agent, and Bronze 6 was running 1.2 and I updated and brought the workload partitions over, and Red 3 is a brand new AX614 with a brand new WPAR in it. We can't actually see that here. Now you have to be a little bit careful here, because this, if I do a right click, is just regular Director 6, and so all the Director 6 functions are available. Or we can go off and do any of our regular functions, like running an inventory. I encourage people to do that every night, configuration and all those other sorts of things, health checks for example. But we're actually interested more in looking at the WPARs. So if we slide down here, we can look at view workload partitions, and here they all are, and we recognize that they're system partitions. They're all defined. Two of them at the top here are active, and they're okay, so Director is happy that it's got access to them. This is the machine they're on. You see most of them on Bronze 6. If we had a larger screen, we could see more here, and Red 3 is the new one. Now that's about what we had before, but if we go back to the top here and bring back the menu, and we go into inventory, hidden away under views is a workload partitions and hosts. Not sure if I like the word host, but that'll do. If we click on that item, we have this quite nice view here. Again, I'll pop the menu out of the way. We have a nice view here of the machine, or the AX instance, and the WPARs running on that. And then down here is Red 3 with its single WPAR. That's quite a nice overview of what's going on in workload partition world. We also find some numbers being generated here for the CPU utilization and the memory use. A little bit worried about some of the numbers we get in here. This looks like we're 98% busy, but I think that is relative to our entitlement rather than relative to the whole machine it's actually sitting on. We have these little dots moving across here where the WPARs are just defined. Okay, let's do some work on a particular workload partition. Let's select this one as it's running. I'm going to do a right click. Alternatively, I could tick this and take the actions box. We can do that one go with a right click, and we get the menu system up in here. I've compared this menu list of items with that of the previous version. All the various operations seem to be here. Of course, this workload partition is active, so it's running, so we can stop it. It doesn't show you that you can start it. The previous version would have start but have that greyed out, so you knew that it was an operation you could do, but not at the moment. If we go into edit in here, we can actually see the details of the workload partition. We get a message up in here saying that this global copy of AIX is at 6.1 technology level 2, and we can't have storage devices, that's the LUNs attached, which is fair enough. We have to update it to the newer version. If we click here on General, we'll see that these are very much the same as in the previous version of Workload Manager. So we have hostname is running, so we can't actually change its name at the moment. We have the file systems, as we'd expect, they're NFS mounted. Options, so we got a script in here which gets run every time we start and stop the workload partition, so we can start and stop applications. Network's fairly simple. Routing's picked up. We're using the default routes. We have the security features as before. We have resource controls for performance constraints, and we have advanced settings for the other bits and pieces. So that's much as we would expect and was in the previous version. Now let's select a few workload partitions and we'll do actions, and we can start it up or start them up. Just as before, it confirms that we didn't accidentally click it. This is the direct way of monitoring things. We can go and do that now. I expect the state to change to transitional and then go active. Oops, it's gone straight to active here. Active. The alternative is we can go to display properties of this action. Up here we can see we're 75% complete because we got 3 out of the 4 and it's all done. If we quit that there, well, we can actually have a look at the job steps. We can actually see getting the details of the W part and starting them up. Let's quit out of that. And we can see they're all up and running, and they're starting to collect statistics on those as well. Okay, if we go to actions, we can deselect all. That's nice and quick. Now I'll select, again, right click here, a simple one machine and one workload partition. We have a feature here with Director 6 called these topology perspectives, and there's a special one here for WPAR topology map. Now this is easier to do if you have a larger screen than the movie allows. Here's our W part in the middle with lots of connections. We can't actually see those in this map over here. We can see there's a lot of other things, so I'll zoom out a couple of times. Okay, down here this icon is a /home directory. We just click on that. In this panel we'll get details about it. Now, so it's /home file system. If we come down here, it's NFS mounted. This is the machine it's mounted on. This is the directory we're actually mounting from the NFS server, and it's mounted in the WPAR as /home. We can also move about. Down here we have the actual machine we're on. Here it's Red 3, and we can click on here and go and investigate Red 3, for example. If I come over this way a bit, I can see this guy here. I'll switch off the moving feature. This is our network. So we can see the network in here, IP address and mask and things like that. These are some of the devices we have connected to our WPAR. They're actually in the global copy of AIX, but some of them are clones so that we don't have performance problems. We can scroll out again and see more of these. There's one down here called the W workload partition settings. if we zoom in a little bit, we can read them. So here we have the things like the CPU shares, the total virtual memory limits, the number of threads are allowed. We can have a look at these. We haven't set these up in this example. If we scroll down here, they're not actually allocated at the moment. Now on a bigger screen that's probably more useful than we have in our tiny little screen here. And we can see everything was nice and green in this case. We can switch these off and only go looking for the ones that have fatal or critical errors, for example. Okay, let's stop the topology view and we'll go back to the workload manager view. Be warned, if we look at this power system summary or health summary, this will take us off to the standard parts of Director, not really relative to the workload partitions. Now let's go quickly and have a little look at create workload partition in here. Now we can go through a set of panels, so let's give it a name. Let's call that demo. It's going to put it on RAID 3. We could browse to go to another one, but that's good enough. Host name, let's just make something else up. As we go to next, it opens up a whole list of other features up here that we're going to go through and have to set. These devices come up early because if we're going to connect a LUN to this particular workload partition, then we have to know about that, because that's another option for places to put file systems, but we'll skip that for now. Then it's asking about adding the file systems, or we can click this button here, configure required file systems. We're going to use local ones. That's nice and quick. Options, good place to put that. We'll skip through those. Networks, inherit name resolution from the global system. Let's not put it on the network. We won't worry about a root. Security options. Note we can actually put in a new password in here, or blank will just let us straight in. We've got the resource controls in here. We'll skip those. We've got some advanced settings. We'll take the defaults for that. Here's a summary. This is going to go and come up but not actually be on a network. Now as it's Director's Way, it'll go off and do that in the background. We can click display properties and watch that happen, or we can go back later on and look at task activities and find out what happened. In this case, let's go to the properties. In here we have the standard logs. Usually doesn't have a lot of information, and we have to do this scrolling back and forth. I've noticed in 2.1 we don't have a great big block of these actions at the top, so we don't have to scroll down to the log. And you need a 20-inch screen if you want to see the entire width of the log here. Now with Workload Partition Manager, of course it splits a particular thing into lots of different steps. In this case I think it is only one step, but things like relocation is a whole bunch of steps as it builds the new workload partition, moves it over and closes down the previous one. So you'll actually see these breaking out in here. Again, this is in a running state, and a workload partition typically takes 3 to 4 minutes to be created. If we go and have a look at workload partitions and hosts, we can see here's a new workload partition being built, and I'll auto magically skip the next 4 minutes in the movie. Okay, we're back. We can see we've gone into the define state in here. We can right click, start it up, and we'll OK that. Okay, it's gone active. Now, as we said in the past, I don't recommend you doing these things online. It can get very boring if you want to start 50 new WPARs, and it's very error prone. We'd skip the network, which you can easily get wrong, and particularly the file systems. If we're NFS mounting those, then again, very easy to get some of the details wrong. Far better to actually start a script to do that and to generate all the details in a script. I've done that and that works fine. The workload partition just magically appears here as it did in the previous version. Okay, then back to our main panel and let's look at relocation. Let's first do a compatibility test. At the moment, I only got two other targets. Okay, well, Red 2 looks like a good target for live and static relocation. If we right-click on a particular one, we can look at Show Test Results, and as you expect, in that case, they all pass. And for static, more interesting probably is looking at one that's failed and trying to find out why, what it doesn't like. So we can't go to Bronze 6, Show Test Results. So some things are okay, and it's saying down here, if we hover over, that we're moving from AX 6.1 TL4 to 6.1 TL2, and that's never going to work. There's things in /var that just will not match the libraries and kernel in that change. So could we do a static change rather than a live move? No, that's still failing because we got the different levels of AIX, and again for the same reason. So very interesting, and works much the same way as before. So let's try a relocation. Relocate. Okay, destination system. We haven't got anything in there, so we browse to the other targets. I did like the old interface where we could type in the name of a system. We haven't looked at domains. Again, we'll look at that in Advanced Movie. It's saying here that this is a good target, so we'll select this one, add it to the list. Well, we can only have one target in this case. That'll put this back into this item here. Okay, next. Live. Sounds good to me. We've got a summary in here, and we'll do a finish. And again, as it's Director's Way, you'll put that into the background, and we'd have to go to Display Properties to go and have a look. Pop the menu out of the way and look at the job steps. This looks pretty much as we did in the older system, and it will take 1 or 2 minutes to move from end to end. Of course, we'll only lock the WPAR for a much shorter period of that, as we now do memory to memory transfers. Oh, it's already complete. The job steps weren't coming out quite as regularly as we hoped. We'll come out of there, and we can see here that WP06 has moved to Red 2. Well, that's the end of our little look at Workload Partition Manager 2.1. Once you get it all installed and you're starting to use Director OK, it behaves much the same as the previous version.